So this is the third video in my series of measuring out the watercolor paper for our project. You didn't have to watch the other ones, but if you are curious, all I did was go over how to measure out the rule of thirds and apply our border to a 9 by 12 piece of paper, and how to apply the rule of thirds and create our border on a piece of 11 by 14 sheet of paper. So if you borrowed paper from me for this assignment, you are working with 12 by 16. So in our previous assignment, we took sketch paper and we applied the rule of thirds to the sketchbook paper. And we added a border on our sketchbook paper so that we had an inner rectangle. We placed our main subject at one of the intersecting parts of the rule of thirds, and we added background. And the requirement was that the background had to go off at least 3 of the sides on our composition. So this one, from the bottom, the right side, and the top, the background moves off of the sides. On this one, from the bottom, the top, and the left side, the background goes off of the paper. And in this one, I used all 4 sides, in which parts of the background stretch out and beyond the paper. So to prepare my watercolor paper for this assignment, I need to first apply the rule of thirds. So looking at this, I have my paper in landscape position, and it is lined up with my ruler at the bottom, and it measures 16. I need to divide 16 divided by 3, and that's going to give me 5.3333, and 3 just keeps on repeating. So 5.33 as my measurement. So I know 5 1/4 is 5.25. I know 5 1/2 is 5.5. And somewhere in between those is going to be my 1/3 measurement. Now, since we're only slightly above 5.25, I'm going to be a little bit closer to my 5 1/4 inch mark than I will my 5 1/2 inch mark when making this 1/3 inch section. And just through experimentation, what I found is 5 5/16 was the best measurement for this. So lining up my ruler along the bottom, I'm going to make a mark at 5 5/16. So I'm using my ruler on the 1/16 side. So here's 5, and then I'm going to count my 16ths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and make my mark right above that. And over on this side, I found that 10 5/8 is the best measurement. So here's 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8. Make a mark. And I'm going to do the same thing at the top of the paper. So 5 5/16, 10 5/8. And as I've mentioned before, when you draw your lines, you want to make them extremely light. You want to barely be able to see them, so that when you submit them to me, you have to kind of enhance them through a photography app to make sure they're visible. So I can just see that on my monitor as I'm recording. So you may not be able to see that during a demonstration. So as I mentioned before, you make your lines very light. I have to make mine darker so that you can see these lines clearly on the video. but yours should not be this dark. So using my straight edge as per usual, I'm lining up the top mark to the bottom mark, and I'm connecting those and drawing my lines on my paper. I'm going to turn my paper a quarter of a turn. Those lines I just made should now be horizontal in position. And now I'm going to divide up my 12-inch side into thirds. So this one's easy. 12 divided by 3 is 4, so I'm making marks at 4 and 8. Move my ruler to the top. And again, make my marks at 4 and 8. And as usual, straight edge lines up the bottom and top marks together. And I'm going to draw a line, and again, yours should be light. Mine are going to be darker so they're visible. And the same thing with these two marks. So now that I have my rule of thirds identified, I need to place my border so I can get that inner rectangle. So I'm going to apply a 3-inch border on here. So if you did watch any of the previous measuring videos because you were curious, a smaller piece of paper cannot handle a 3-inch border. So I had to go with something a little bit smaller. So I chose 2 inches. I could have went 2.5. So I'd say somewhere between 2.5 inches for a 9 by 12 piece of paper would work. An 11 by 14 paper can handle a 3-inch border. So I applied a 3-inch border to it. And now on this paper, I'm going to apply a 3-inch border to this surface. So as per usual, ruler at the bottom of the paper, I'm going to make a mark at 3 inches, and from the right side, 12 minus 3 is 9. Move my ruler to the top, make a mark at 3 inches, 12 minus 3 is 9, and I'm going to line these marks up. And again, you want to make your lines light. I'm going to make mine darker so you can see, but we're just going to draw these lines on. I'm going to give my paper 1/4 of a turn, and the same process, 3-inch border. Let's make my mark at 3. 16 minus 3 is 13. Same thing at the top, 3-inch. 16 minus 3 is 13. And once again, line up that top mark to that bottom mark and draw my lines. Now that I have these lines on here, all I need for the next step of this process is to apply my drawing. But first, that means I'm going to get rid of anything I don't need right now. So I need my rectangle in the middle, this one we just created with the 3-inch border, and I need my rule of thirds applied. So what I don't need are these extra lines up here in the corner that crossed over each other when making my 3-inch border. So I'm going to erase those lines. So again, this is why you want to keep your lines light, because you don't want them to be seen through the watercolor. As we know, watercolor is a very translucent, transparent material. And you also run the risk that if you press too hard while drawing with pencil, of denting the paper, and the watercolor can pool in that area, and then they're visible anyways. So erase those extra pencil lines in the corner, and that leaves me with my third rule of third markings, and it leaves me with my rectangle in the middle. So that is our paper prepared and ready for the next phase of our project, which is applying our subject.